Hello everybody, like and subscribe. It's been a while since I did a video. Today we're going to do a video on Emmett Till. I want to warn everybody that there's some racial slurs as well as some graphic photos that will be added to this video. Hope you enjoy. Well, I guess enjoy is not quite the right word, but let's begin. Since that time, more than 500 African Americans have been killed by extrajudicial violence in Mississippi alone, and more than 3,000 across the South. Most of the instances took place between 1876 and 1930. Though far less common by the mid-1950s, these racially motivated murders still occurred throughout the South. Interracial relationships were prohibited as a means to maintain white supremacy. Even the suggestion of sexual contact between black men and white women could carry severe penalties for black men. A resurgence of the enforcement of such Jim Crow laws were evident following the World War II, when African American veterans started pressing for equal rights in the South, as they fought for us too. Racial tensions increased after the United States Supreme Court's 1954 decision in Brown v. Board of Education to end segregation in public education, which it ruled unconstitutional. Many segregationists believed the ruling would lead to interracial dating and marriage. Whites struggling resisted the court's ruling. One Virginia county closed all its public schools to prevent integration. Other jurisdictions simply ignored the ruling. In other ways, whites used stronger measures to keep blacks politically disenfranchised, which they had been since the turn of the century. Segregation in the South were used to constrain blacks forcefully from any semblance of social equality. Statistics on lynchings began to be collected in 1882. They were mostly sharecroppers who lived on land owned by whites. Blacks had essentially been disenfranchised and excluded from voting and the political system since 1890, when the dominated the legislature passed a new constitution that raised barriers to voter registration. Whites had also passed ordinances establishing racial segregation and Jim Crow laws. In the rural areas, economic opportunities for blacks were almost non-existent. Argo received so many southern migrants that it was named Little Mississippi. Carathan's mother's home was often used by other recent migrants as a way, which was his aunt, station while they were trying to find jobs and housing. Mississippi was the poorest state in the U.S. in the 1950s, and the Delta counties were some of the poorest in Mississippi. This is a picture of Emmett Till's father. Emmett Louis Till was born July 25th, 1941. He passed away on August 28th, 1955. Emmett Till was born in 1941 in Chicago, son of Mimi Carathan and Louise Till. Emmett's mother, Mimi, was born in the small delta town of Webb, Mississippi. The Delta region encompasses the large multi-county area of northwestern Mississippi in the watershed of the Yazoo and Mississippi rivers. When Carathan was 2 years old, her family moved to Argo, Illinois, near Chicago, as part of the great immigration of rural black families out of the South to the North to escape violence, lack of opportunity, and unequal treatment under the law. Mimi Carathan was born in Tallahatchie County, where the average income poor white household in 1949 was $690, equivalent to $7,000 in 2016. Mimi, I'm not sure, Mammy it looks like, but Mimi probably, largely raised Emmett with her mother. She and Louise Till separated in 1942 after she discovered that he had been unfaithful. Louise later abused her, choking her to unconsciousness, to which she responded by throwing scalding water at him. For violating court orders to stay away from Mimi, Louise Till was forced to be a judge forced by a judge in 1943 to choose between jail or enlisting in the U.S. Army. In 1945, a few weeks before his son's 4th birthday, he was executed for the murder of an Italian woman and the rape of 2 others. At the age of 6, Emmett contracted polio, which left him with a persistent stutter. Mimi and Emmett moved to Detroit, where she met and married Pink Bradley in 1951. Emmett preferred living in Chicago, so he returned there to live with his grandmother. His mother and stepfather rejoined him later in that year. After their marriage dissolved in 1952, Pink Bradley returned alone to Detroit. Mimi Till Bradley and Emmett lived together in a busy neighborhood in Chicago's South Side, near distant relatives. She began working as a civilian clerk for the U.S. Air Force for a better salary. She recalled that Emmett was industrious enough to help with chores at home, although he sometimes got distracted. His mother remembered that he did not know his own limitations at times. Following the couple's separation, Bradley visited Mimi and began threatening her. At 11 years old, Emmett, with a butcher knife in hand, told Bradley he would kill him if the man did not leave. Usually, however, Emmett was very happy. He and his cousins and friends pulled pranks on each other. Emmett once took advantage of an extended car ride with his friend fell asleep and placed a friend's underwear on his head. And they also spent their free time in pickup baseball games. He was a natty or neat dresser and was often the center of attention among his peers. In 1955, Mimi Till, Bradley's uncle, 64-year-old Mose Wright, visited her and Emmett in Chicago during the summer and told Emmett stories about living in the Mississippi Delta. Emmett wanted to see it for himself. Wright planned to accompany Till with a cousin, Wheeler Barker. Another cousin, Curtis Jones, would join them soon. Wright was a sharecropper and part-time minister who was often called preacher. He lived in Money, Mississippi, a small town in Delta that consisted of 3 stores, a school, a post office, a cotton gin, and a few hundred residents, 8 miles north of Greenwood. Before Emmett was departed for the Delta, his mother cautioned him that Chicago and Mississippi were 2 different worlds, and he should know how to behave in front of whites in the South. He assured her he understood. A week before Till arrived in Mississippi, a black activist named Lamar Smith was shot and killed in front of the county courthouse in Brookhaven for political organizing. 3 Wright suspects were arrested, but they were soon released. Till arrived in Money, Mississippi on August 21st, 1955. On August 24th, he and cousin Curtis Jones skipped church where his great-uncle Mose Wright was preaching and joined some local boys as they went to Bryant's grocery and meat market to buy candy. And this is where the crime starts. The teenagers were children of sharecroppers and had been picking cotton all day. The market mostly served the local sharecroppers' population and was owned by a white couple, 24-year-old Roy Bryant and his 21-year-old wife Carolyn. Carolyn was alone in the front of the store that day. Her sister-in-law was in the rear of the store watching children. Jones left Till with the other boys while Jones played checkers across the street. Facts of what took place in the store are still disputed. According to what Jones said at the time, the other boys reported that Till had a photograph of an integrated school at the school he attended in Chicago, and Till bragged to the boys that the white children in the picture were his friends. He pointed to a white girl in the picture, referred to a picture of a white girl that had come with his new wallet, and said she was his girlfriend. According to Jones' account, 1 or more of the local boys then dared Till to speak to Bryant. However, writing a personal account of the incident in a book released in 2009, Till's cousin Simon Wright, who was also present, disputed Jones' version of what happened on that day. According to Wright, Till did not have a photo of a white girl in his wallet, and no one dared him to flirt with Bryant. Speaking in 2015, Wright said, "We didn't dare him to go to the store. The white folks said that he had pictures of his white girlfriend. There were no pictures. They never talked to me. They never interviewed me." The FBI report completed in 2006 notes, Curtis Jones recanted his 1955 statement prior to his death and apologized to Mimi Till Mobley. According to some versions, including comments from some of the youngsters standing outside the store, Till may have whistled at Bryant. Till's cousin Simon Wright, who was with him at the store, stated that Till whistled at Bryant, saying, "I think Emmett wanted to get a laugh out of us or something," adding he was always joking around and it was hard to tell when he was serious. Wright stated that following the whistle, he became immediately alarmed. "Well, it scared us half to death," Wright recalled. "We were almost as shocked. We couldn't get out of there fast enough because we had never heard of anything like this before. A black boy whistling at a white woman in Mississippi? No," Wright stated. "The Ku Klux Klan and night riders were part of our daily lives." Following his disappearance, a newspaper account stated that Till sometimes whistled to alleviate his stuttering. His speech was sometimes unclear. His mother said he had particular difficulty with pronouncing B sounds, and he may have whistled to overcome problems asking for bubblegum. She said that to help with this articulation, she taught Till how to whistle softly to himself before pronouncing his words. During the murder trial, Bryant testified that Till grabbed her hand while she was stalking candy, and said, "How about a date, baby?" She said that after she freed himself from his grasp, the young man followed her to the cash register, grabbed her waist, and said, "What's the matter, baby? Can't you take it?" Bryant said she freed herself, and Till said, "You needn't be afraid of me, baby." You used one unprinted word and said, "I've been with white women before." Bryant also alleged that one of Till's companions came into the store, grabbed him by the arm, and ordered him to leave. According to historian Timothy Tyson, Bryant admitted to him in a 2008 interview that her testimony during the trial that Till had made verbal and physical advances was false. Bryant had testified Till grabbed her waist and uttered obscenities, but later told Tyson that part's not true. As for the rest of what happened, the 72-year-old stated she could not remember. How convenient. Bryant is quoted by Tyson as saying, "Nothing that boy did could ever justify what happened to him." However, the tape recording that Tyson made of the interview with Bryant do not contain Bryant saying those things. In addition, the woman with Bryant at the interviews, her daughter-in-law, Marsha Bryant, says that Bryant never told Tyson that. Decades later, Till's cousin Simon Wright also challenged the account given by Carolyn Bryant at the trial. Wright claims he entered the store less than a minute after Till was left inside alone with Bryant, and he saw no inappropriate behavior and heard no luxurious conversation. Wright said Till paid for his items and we left the store together. In their 2006 investigation of the cold case, the FBI noted that a second anonymous source, who was confirmed to have been in the store at the same time as Till and his cousin, supported Wright's account. Author Devery Anderson writes that in an interview with the defense's attorneys, Bryant told a version of the initial encounter that included Till grabbing her hand and asking her for a date, but not Till approaching her and grabbing her waist, mentioning past relationships with white women, or having to be dragged unwillingly out of the store by another boy. Anderson further notes that many remarks prior to Till's kidnapping made of those involved indicate that it was his remarks to Bryant that angered his killers, rather than any alleged physical harassment. For instance, Mose Wright, a witness to the kidnapping, said that the kidnappers mentioned only talk at the store. Sheriff George Smith only spoke of the arrested killers or accusing Till of ugly remarks. Anderson suggests that the evidence taken together implies that the more extreme details of Bryant's story were invented after the fact as part of the defense legal strategy. After Wright and Till left the store, Bryant went outside to retrieve a pistol from underneath the seat of a car. The teenagers saw her do this and left immediately. It was acknowledged that Till whistled while Bryant was going to the car. However, it is disputed whether Till whistled toward Bryant or toward a checkers game that was occurring just across the street. One of the other boys ran across the street to tell Curtis Jones what happened in the store. When the older man With whom Jones was playing checkers, heard the story. He urged the boys to leave quickly, fearing violence. Bryant told others of the events at the store, and the story spread quickly. Joseph Till declined to tell his great-uncle Mose Wright, fearing they would get in trouble. Till said he wanted to return home to Chicago. Carolyn's husband, Roy Bryant, was on an extended trip hauling shrimp to Texas and did not return home until August 27th. Historian Timothy Tyson said an investigation by civil rights activists concluded Carolyn Bryant did not initially tell her husband, Roy Bryant, about the encounter with Till, and that Roy was told by a person who hung around down at their store. Roy was reportedly angry at his wife for not telling him. Carolyn Bryant told the FBI she didn't tell her husband because she feared he would beat Till up. When Roy Bryant was informed of what had happened, he aggressively questioned several young black men who entered the store. That evening, Bryant, with a black man named J.W. Washington, approached a black teenager walking along a road. Bryant ordered Washington to seize the boy, put him in the back of a pickup truck, and took him to be identified by a companion of Carolyn's who had witnessed the episode with Till. Friends or parents vouched for the boy in Bryant's store, and Carolyn's companion denied that the boy Bryant and Washington seized was the one who had accosted her. Somehow Bryant learned that the boy in the incident was from Chicago and was staying with Mose Wright. Several witnesses overheard Bryant and his 36-year-old half-brother, John William, J.W. William, discussing taking Till from his house. In the early morning hours of August 28, 1955, sometime between 2 and 3:30 a.m., Bryant and William drove to Mose Wright's house. William was arrived with a pistol and flashlight and asked Wright if he had 3 boys in the house from Chicago. Till was sharing a bed with another cousin. There were 8 people in the small 2-bedroom cabin. William asked Wright to take him to the nigger who did the talking. Excuse my language, I hate that word. Till's great-aunt offered the men money, but William refused as he rushed Emmett to put on his clothes. Mose Wright informed the men that Till was from up north and didn't know any better. William reportedly then asked, "How old are you, preacher?" To which Wright responded, 64. William threatened that if Wright told anybody he wouldn't live to see 65. The men marched Till out to the truck. Wright said he heard them ask someone in the car if this was the boy and heard someone say yes. When asked if the voice was that of a man or woman, Wright said it seemed like it was a lighter voice than a man's. In 1956 interview with Look magazine in which they confessed to the killing, Bryant and William said they would have brought Till by their store in order to have Carolyn identify him, but stated that they did not do so because they said Till admitted to being the one who had talked to her. They tied up Till in the back of the green pickup truck and drove toward Money, Mississippi. According to some witnesses, they took Till back to Bryant's grocery and recruited 2 black men. The men then drove to a barn and drew. The pistol whipped him on the way and purportedly knocked him unconscious. Willie Reed, who was 18 years old at the time, saw the truck passing by. Reed recalled seeing 2 white men in the front seat and 2 black males in the back. Some have speculated that 2 black men worked for William and were forced to help with the beating, although they later denied being present. Wiley Reed said that while walking home, he heard the beating and crying from the barn. He told a neighbor, and they both walked back up to the road to a water well near the barn where they were approached by William. William asked if they heard anything. Reed responded no. Others passed by the shed and heard yelling. A local neighbor also spotted 2 tight Leroy Collins at the back of the barn, washing blood off the truck, and noticed Till's boots. William explained he had killed a deer and that the boots belonged to him. Some have claimed that Till was shot and tossed over the Black Bayou Bridge in Glendora, Mississippi, near the Tallahatchie River. The group drove back to Roy Bryant's home in Money, where they purportedly burned Emmett's clothes. J.W. William took Look magazine 1956 review. "Well, what else could we do? He was hopeless. I'm no bully. I never hurt a nigger in my life. I like niggers in their place. I know how to work 'em. But I just decided it was time a few people got to put on notice. As long as I live and can do anything about it, niggers are going to stay in their place. Niggers ain't going to vote where I live. If they did, they'd control the government. They ain't going to go to school with my kids. And when a nigger gets close to mentioning sex with a white woman, he's tired of living. I'm likely to kill him. Me and my folks fought for this country, as did they, you asshole, and we got some rights. I stood there in that shed and listened to that nigger throw that poison at me, and I just made up my mind. Chicago boy, I said, I'm tired of them sending you kind down here to stir up trouble. God damn you, I'm going to make an example of you just so everybody can know how me and my folks stand. In an interview with William Bradford Huey, who was published in Look magazine in 1986, Bryant and William said that they intended to beat Till and throw him off an embankment into the river to frighten him. They told Hugh that while they were beating Till, he called him bastards, declared he was as good as they, and said that he had sexual encounters with white women. He was too young to even know what those were. They put Till in the back of the truck and drove to a cotton gin to take a 70-pound fan, which you've seen a picture of. The only time they admitted to being worried, thinking that by the time in early daylight they would be spotted and accused of stealing, and drove for several miles along the river looking for a place to dispose of Till. They shot him by the river and weighted his body with the fan. Mose Wright stayed on his front porch for 20 minutes waiting for Till to return. He did not go back to bed. He and another man went to Money to got gasoline and drove around trying to find Till. Unsuccessfully, they returned home by 8 a.m. After hearing from Wright that he would not call the police because he feared for his life, Curtis Jones placed a call to the LaFleur County Sheriff and another to his mother in Chicago. Wright and his wife Elizabeth drove to Sumner, where Elizabeth's brother contacted the sheriff. Bryant and William were questioned by LaFleur County Sheriff George Smith. They admitted that they had taken the boy from the great-uncle's yard, but claimed they had released him the same night in front of Bryant's store. Bryant and William were arrested for kidnapping. Word got out that Till was missing, and soon Major Evers, Mississippi State Field Secretary of National Associations for Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, and M.Z. Moore, head of the NAACP's Bolivar County chapter, became involved. They disguised themselves as cotton pickers and went into the cotton fields in search of any information that might help find Till. 3 days after his abduction and murder, Till's swollen and disfigured body, as you've seen pictures of, was found by 2 boys who were fishing into the Tallahatchie River. His head was very badly mutilated and had been shot above the right ear. An eye was dislodged from the socket. There was evidence that he had been beaten on the back and the hips, and body weighted by a fan blade, which was fastened around his neck with barbed wire. He was nude but wearing a silver ring with the initials LT, and May 25, 1943 carved in it. His face was unrecognizable due to trauma and having been submerged in water. Mose Wright was called to the river to identify Till. The silver ring that Till was wearing was removed, returning to Wright, and it passed on to the district attorney as evidence. Although lynchings and racially motivated murders had occurred throughout the South for decades, the circumstances surrounding Till's murder and the timing acted as a catalyst to attract national attention to the case of a 14-year-old boy who had allegedly been killed for breaching a social caste system. Till's murder roused feelings about segregation, law enforcement, relations between the North and the South, and social status quo in Mississippi. The activists of the NAACP and the White Citizens Council and the Cold War, all of which were played out in drama staged in newspapers all over the U.S. and abroad. After Till went missing, a 3-paragraph story was printed in the Greenwood Commonwealth and quickly picked up by other Mississippi newspapers. They reported on his death when the body was found. The next day, when a picture of him and his mother had taken the previous Christmas, which you've seen at the beginning of the video, showing him smiling together, appeared in the Jackson Daily News and Vicksburg Evening Post editorials and letters to the editor were printed, expressing shame at the people who had caused Till's death. One read, "Now is a time for every citizen who loves the state of Mississippi stand up and be counted before hoodlums. White trash brings us to destruction." The letter said that Negroes were not the downfall of Mississippi society, but whites like those in white citizens' councils that condone violence. Till's body was closed, packed in lime, placed into a pine coffin, and prepared for burial. It may have been involved while in Mississippi. Mimi Till Bradley demanded that the body be sent to Chicago. She later said that she worked to halt an immediate burial in Mississippi and called several local and state authorities in Illinois and Mississippi to make sure that her son was returned to Chicago. A doctor did not examine Till post-mortem. He never had a post-mortem. Mississippi Governor Hugh L. White deplored the murder, asserting that local authorities should pursue a rigorous prosecution. He sent a telegram to the national office of the NAACP promising a full investigation, assuring that Mississippi does not condone such conduct. Delta residents, both black and white, also distanced themselves from Till's murder, finding the circumstances abhorrent. Local newspaper editorials denounced the murders without question. Lafleur County Deputy Sheriff John Cawthorn stated, "The white people around here feel pretty mad about the way the poor little boy was treated, and they won't stand for this." Soon, however, discourse about Till's murder became more complex. Robert B. Patterson, executive secretary of the Segregationist White Citizens Council, used Till's death to claim that racial segregation policies were to provide for black safety and that their efforts were being neutralized by the NAACP. In response, the NAACP executive secretary Ray Wilkins characterized the incident as a lynching and said that Mississippi was trying to maintain white supremacy through murder. He said there is in the entire state no restraining influence of the decency, not in the state capital, among that daily newspapers, the clergy, nor any segment of the so-called better citizens. Mimi Till Bradley told a reporter that she would seek legal aid to help law enforcement find her son's killers and that the state of Mississippi should share the financial responsibility. She was misquoted. It was reported as Mississippi is going to pay for this. The A.A. Rainier Funeral Home in Chicago received Till's body. Upon arrival, Bradley insisted on viewing it to make a positive identification, later saying that the stench from it was noticeable 2 blocks away. She decided to have an open casket funeral, saying there was just no way I could describe what was in the box, no way, and I just wanted the world to see. Tens of thousands of people lined the streets outside the mortuary to view Till's body, and days later thousands more attended this funeral as Robert's Temple Church of God and Christ. Photographs of his mutilated corpse circulated around the country, notably appearing in Jet magazine and the Chicago Defender, both black publications generating intense public reactions. According to the Nation Newsweek, Chicago's black community was aroused as it has not been over any similar act in recent history. Time later selected one of the Jet photographs showing Mimi Till over the mutilated body of her dead son as one of 100 most influential images of all time. For almost a century, African Americans were lynched with regularity. Cohen's and luggage were spotted with J.W. Milliam Bryant until the prosecution team was unaware of the Cohen's logins. Sheriff Strutter, however, booked them into the Charleston, Mississippi jail to keep them from testifying. Now on to the trial. In impunity now, thanks to a mother's determination to expose the barbarousness of the crime, the public could no longer pretend to ignore what they couldn't see. Till was buried on September 6th in Burr Oak Cemetery in Islip, Illinois. News from Emmett Till spread to both coasts. Chicago Mayor Richard J. Daley and Illinois Governor William Stratton also became involved, urging Mississippi Governor White to see that justice was done. The tone of Mississippi newspapers changed dramatically. They falsely reported riots at the funeral in Chicago. Bryant and Milliam appeared in photos smiling and wearing military uniforms, and Carolyn's Bryant's beauty and virtue were extolled. Rumors of an invasion of outraged blacks and northern whites were printed throughout the state and were taken seriously by the LaFleur County sheriffs. T.R.M. Howard, a local businessman, surgeon, and civil rights proponent, and one of the wealthiest black people in the state, warned of a second civil war if slaughtering of Negroes was allowed. Brand of as xenophobia in the South were particularly strong. Followed by Roy Wilkins' comments, white opinion began to shift. According to historian Stephen J. Whitefield, a specific brand of xenophobia in the South was particularly strong in Mississippi. Whites were urged to reject the influence of Northern opinion and agitation. This independent attitude was profound enough to Tallahatchie County that earned the nickname the Free State of Tallahatchie. According to the former sheriff, because people here do what they damn well please, making the county often difficult to govern. Tallahatchie County Sheriff Clarence Strider, who initially positively identified Till's body and stated that the case against Milliam and Bryant was pretty good, on December 3rd announced his doubts that the body pulled from the Tallahatchie River was that of Till. He speculated the boy was probably still alive. Strider suggested that the recovered body had been planted by the NAACP, a corpse stolen by T.R.M. Howard, who colluded to place Till's ring on it. Strider changed his account after comments were published in the press denigrating the people of Mississippi. Later saying, "The last thing I wanted to do was to defend those Peckerwoods, but I just had no choice about it." Bryant and William were indicted for murder. The state prosecuting attorney Hamilton Caldwell was not confident that he could get a conviction in a case of white violence against a black male accused of insulting a white woman. A local black paper was surprised at the indictment and praised the decision, as did the New York Times. The high-profile comments published in northern newspapers and by the NAACP were of concern to the prosecuting attorney Gerald Chatham. He worried that his office would not be able to secure a guilty verdict despite the compelling evidence. Having limited funds, Bryant and Milliam initially had difficulty finding attorneys to represent them, but 5 attorneys at Sumner Law Firm offered their services pro bono. Their supporters placed collection jars in stores and other public places in the Delta, eventually gathering $10,000 for the defense. The trial was held in the county courthouse in Sumner. The western seat of Tallahatchie County became Till's body was found in this area. Sumner had one boarding house. The small town was besieged by reporters from all over the country. David Halberstam called the trial the first great media event of the civil rights movement. A reporter who had covered the trial of Bruno Hauptmann and Machine Gun Kelly reported that this was the first publicity for any trial he had ever seen. It was the most publicity. No hotels were open to black visitors. Mimi Till Bradley arrived to testify, and the trial also attracted black Congressman Charles Diggs from Michigan. Bradley, Diggs, and several black reporters stayed at T.R.M. Howard's home in Mound Bayou, located on a large lot and surrounded by Howard's armed guards. It resembled a compound. The day before the day of the trial, a young black man named Frank Young arrived to tell Howard he knew of 2 witnesses to the crime. Levi Tye Collins and Henry Lee Loggins were black employees as Leslie Milliam, J.W.'s brother, in which into his shed till was beaten. Collins and Loggins were spotted with J.W. Millie and Bryant until the prosecution team was unaware of Collins and Loggins. Sheriff Strider, however, booked them into the Charleston, Mississippi jail to keep them from testifying. Their trial was held in September 1955 and lasted for 5 days. Attendees remembered that the weather was very hot. The courtroom was filled with capacity with 280 spectators. Black attendees sat in segregated sections. Press from major national newspapers attended, including black publications. Black reporters were required to sit in the segregated black section and away from the white press, farther from the jury. Sheriff Strider welcomed black spectators coming back from the lunch with the cheerful "Hello, niggers," of course. Some visitors from the north found that the court to be run with surprising informality. Jury members were allowed to drink beer on duty, and many white male spectators wore handguns. In post-trial analysis, the blame for the outcome varied. Emmett Till and Bradley was criticized for not crying enough on the stand. Gosh, ridiculous. The jury was noted to have been picked almost exclusively from the Hill Country section of Tallahatchie County, which, due to its poor economic makeup, found whites and blacks competing for land and other agrarian opportunities. Unlike the population living closer to the river and thus closer to Bryant and William in the Florida County, who possessed a nobility outlook toward blacks, according to historian Stephen Whitaker, who's in the eastern part of the county, were virulent in the racism. Jeez, I can't talk tonight. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning, guys. Bear with me. The prosecution was criticized for dismissing any potential juror who knew William and Bryant personally, for fear that such a juror would vote to acquit. Afterward, Whitaker noted that this had been a mistake to those who knew the defendants usually disliked them. One juror voted twice to convict, but on the third decision voted with the rest of the jury to acquit. In later interviews, the jurors acknowledged that they knew Bryant and William were guilty, but simply did not believe that life imprisonment or the death penalty were fit punishment for whites who had killed a black man. How about a black boy? However, 2 jurors said as late as 2005 that they believed the defendant's case. They also said the prosecution had not proved that Till had died, nor that it was his body that was removed from the river. In November 1955, a grand jury declined to indict Bryant and William for kidnapping, despite their own admissions of having taken Till. Mose Wright and a young man named Willie Reed, who testified, see William enter the shed from which screams and blows were heard. Both testified in front of the grand jury. Gutsy for back then. After the trial, T.R.M. Howard paid the cost of relocating to Chicago for Wright Reed, another black witness, who testified against William and Bryant in order to protect 3 witnesses from reprisals for having testified. Reed, who later changed his name to Willie Lewis to avoid being found, continued to live in the Chicago area until his death in July 18, 2013. Excuse me. He avoided publicity and even kept his history a secret from his wife until she was told by a relative. Reed began to speak publicly about the case in the PBS documentary The Murder of Emmett Till, aired in 2003. Emmett Till Mobley's memoirs, who next year all posed questions as to who was involved in the murder and cover-up. Federal authorities in the 2001 century worked to resolve the questions about the identity of the body pulled from the Tallahatchie River. In 2004, the U.S. Department of Justice, DOJ, announced that it was reopening the case to determine whether anyone other than William and Bryant were involved. David T. Beato, a professor at the University of Alabama, stated that Till's murder has a mythic quality like the Kennedy assassination. The DOJ had undertaken to investigate the numerous cold cases dating to the civil rights movement in the hope of finding new evidence in other murders as well. The body was exhumed and the Cook County coroners conducted the autopsy in 2005. Using DNA from Till's relatives, dental comparisons to images taken of Till, and anthropological analysis, the exhumed body was positively identified as that of Till. It had extensive cranial damage, a broken left femur, and 2 broken wrists. Metallic fragments found in the skull were consistent with bullets being fired from a .45 caliber gun. In February 2007, a LaFleur County grand jury composed primarily of black jurors and impaneled by Joyce Chills, a black prosecutor, found no credible basis for Meacham's claim that 14 people took part in Till's abduction and murder. Beecham was angry with the finding. David Beato and Juan Williams, who worked on the reading materials for the Eye on the Prize documentary, were critical of Beecham for trying to revise history and taking attention away from the other cold cases. The grand jury failed to find sufficient cause for charges against Carolyn and Bryant Dunham. Neither the FBI nor the grand jury found any credible evidence that Henry Lee Loggins, identified by Beecham as a suspect who could be charged, had any role in the crime. Other than Loggins, Beecham refused to name any of the people he alleged were involved. For 50 years, nobody talked about Emmett Till. I think we just have to be resilient and know there are folks out there that don't want to know this history, who want to erase the history. We are just going to be resilient and continuing to put them back up and be truthful in making sure that Emmett didn't die in vain. Patrick Weems, Executive Director of the Emmett Till Memorial Commission, speaking in October 2019 at the unveiling of a bulletproof historical marker, the previous 3 markers at the site having been shot up near the Tallahatchie River, as you will see pictures of, you guys. The first highway marker remembering Emmett Till, erected in 2006, was defaced with KKK and then completely covered with black paint. In 2007, 8 markers were erected at sites associated with Till's lynching, which you'll see also. The marker at the river spot where Till's body was found was torn down in 2008, presumably thrown in the river. A replacement sign received more than 100 bullet holes over the next few years. Another replacement was installed in June 2018, and in July it was vandalized by bullets. Imagine these times, like seriously, people need to grow up. 3 University of Mississippi students were suspended from their fraternity after posing in front of the bullet-riddled marker with guns and uploading the photo to Instagram. Freaking idiots. As stated by Jerry Mitchell, it is not clear whether fraternity students shot the sign or simply posing before it. In 2019, a 4th sign was erected. It is made of steel, weighs 500 pounds, is over 1 inch thick, and is said by its manufacturer to be indestructible. In 2017, historian and author Timothy Tyson released details of a 2008 interview with Carolyn Bryant, during which he alleged she had disclosed that she had fabricated parts of the testimony at the trial. According to Tyson's account of the interview, Bryant retracted her testimony that Till had grabbed her around her waist and uttered obscenities, saying that that's not true. The jury did not hear Bryant's testimony at the trial, as the judge had ruled it inadmissible. How the fuck was that inadmissible? What the court spectators heard. The defense wanted Bryant's testimony as evidence for possible appeal in case of conviction. In the 2008 interview, the 72-year-old Bryant said she could not remember the rest of the events. that occurred between her and Till in the grocery store. Of all things you freaking forget. You're full of bullshit. She also said nothing that boy did could ever justify what happened to him. Tyson said that Roy Bryant had been abusive toward Carolyn, and it was clear she was frightened of her husband. Tyson believed Bryant embellished her testimony under coercive circumstances. Bryant described Miriam as a domineering and brutal and not a kind man. An editorial in the New York Times said regarding Bryant's admission that portions of her testimony were false. This admission is a reminder of how black lives were sacrificed to white lies in places like Mississippi. It also raises anew the question of why no one was brought to justice for the most notorious racially motivated murder of the 20th century, despite the extensive investigation by the FBI. The New York Times quoted Wheeler Parker, a cousin of Till's, who said, "I was hoping that one day Bryant, understanding how Bryant would admit it, so it matters to me that she did, and it gives me some satisfaction. It is important to people understanding how the word of a white person against a black person was law, or in some ways still is, and a lot of black people lost their lives because of it. It really speaks to history. It shows that black people went through in those days, still do somehow. However, this recanting claim made by Tyson was not on his tape recording of the interview. Of course it wasn't. She made sure it wasn't. It is true that part is not on tape because I was setting up the tape recorder. She made sure you were doing it at that time so she wouldn't be on record. She ain't stupid," Tyson said. The support Tyson provided to back up his claim was a handwritten note that he said had been made at the time. In a report to Congress in March 2018, the U.S. Department of Justice stated that it was reopening the investigation into Till's death due to new information. In December 2021, the U.S. Justice Department announced that it had closed its investigation of the case. In June 2022, an unserved arrest warrant for Carolyn Bryant, now known as Carolyn Bryant Dunham, dated August 29, 1955, and signed by the LaFleur County Clerk, was discovered in a courthouse basement. Of course it was, by members of the Emmett Till Agent Legacy Foundation. Following the discovery, Till's family called for Dunham's arrest. However, the district attorney declared to charge Dunham and said that there was no new evidence to reopen the case. In August 2022, a grand jury concluded that there was insufficient evidence to indict Dunham. 2022, I'm More Than a Wolf Whistle into the 100-page memoir of Carolyn Bryant Dunham was copied and given to News One by an anonymous source. The text had been given to the University of North Carolina to privately hold until 2036. The full text was also posted online and can be viewed at Wikipedia. Good, because I would never pay for that shit and give her fucking money. The memoir had been prepared by Dunham's daughter-in-law, Marsha Bryant, who had shared the material with Timothy Tyson, with the understanding that Tyson would edit the memoir. However, Tyson said there was no such agreement and placed the memoir the Southern Historical Collection at the University of North Carolina Chapel Hill Library Archives, which access restricted for 20 years or until Dunham's death. It needs to be burnt. Unserved arrest warrants not formally charged. Bryant William admitted to the murder in an interview after the acquittal. At the time of Emmett's murder, these are just extra details that were added to the article. At the time of Emmett's murder in 1955, Emmett's mother was often referred to by using her second husband's name as Mimi Till Bradley. In 1957, she married John Mobley and then became known as Mimi Till Mobley. Accounts are unclear. Till had just completed the 7th grade at all-black Gosh Elementary School in Chicago. During the trial, Carolyn Bryant's testimony was taken outside the presence of the jury and ruled inadmissible. Notes later obtained from the defense gave a different story from Bryant, earlier claiming she was insulted, but not mentioning him touching her. Some recollections of this part of the story related that news of the incident traveled in both black and white communities were very quickly. Others say that Carolyn Bryant refused to tell her husband about it. Till's oldest cousin, Maurice Wright, perhaps put off Till's bragging, told Roy Bryant at his story about Till's interaction with Bryant's wife. Several major inconsistencies between what Bryant and William told interviewer William Bradford Hugh and what they had told others were noted by the FBI in 2006. There was a pair of men told Huey they were sober, yet reported years later that they had been drinking. In an interview, they said that they had driven what would have been 164 miles looking for a place to dispose of Till's body to the cotton gin to obtain the van and back again, which the FBI noted would be impossible in the time they were witnessed having returned. Several witnesses recalled that they saw Bryant William and two or more black men with Till's beaten body in the back of the pickup truck in Glendoria, yet they did not tell Huey they were in Glendoria. Many years later, there were allegations that Till had been castrated. Mitchell, 2007. John Catherine, the deputy sheriff who was at the scene where Till was removed from the river, testified, however, that apart from the decomposition typical of a body being submerged in water, his genitals had been intact. Mimi Till Mobley also confirmed this in her memoirs. When Jet publisher John H. Johnson died in 2005, people who remembered his career considered his decision to publish Till's open casket photograph his greatest moment. Michigan Congressman Charles Diggs recalled that for the emotion that image stimulated, it was probably one of the greatest media products in the last 40 or 50 years. Following the trial, Strider told the television reporter that should anyone who had sent him hate mail arrive in Mississippi, the same thing's going to happen to them that happened to Emmett Till. That's fucked up. The trial transcript says there he is, although the witnesses recall variation, there he is. That was the one Ryder's family protested that Moe's right was made to sound illiterate by newspapers' accounts, insisted he said, there he is. So no A month after Hugh's article appeared in Look, T.R.M. Howard worked with Olive Arnold Adams of the New York Age to publish a version of the events that agreed more with the testimony at the trial and what Howard had been told by Frank Young. It appeared as a booklet titled Time Bomb Mississippi Exposed, and the full story of Emmett Till. Howard also acted as a source for as yet unidentified reporter using the pseudonym Amos Dixon in the California Eagle. Dixon wrote a series of articles implicating three black men and Leslie William, whom he reported had participated in Till's murder in some way. Time Bomb and Dixon's articles had no lasting effect in the shaping of public opinion. Hughes' article in the far more widely circulated Look became the most commonly accepted version of the events. Anyway, that's the case of Emmett Till. Very tragic, screwed up, hard to believe. Unfortunately, things still happen in the world, and I just don't get it, you know? How can people be so ignorant? How can people do that to a child? He was 14 years old. How can you do that to a child, let alone a human being? You know, I don't judge people by their skin color or their looks or nothing. It's all about who you are and how you act, how I will judge you. You know what I mean? I just could not imagine his mother's, what she must have felt and everything else. Anyways, I hope to do more videos. It seems like my true crime ones are the ones that you guys all enjoy the most. I've been having some health problems and stuff, so I just got the COVID booster and for work, and I'm really not feeling good today. Anyways, I hope you guys stay safe out there. Things are getting cray. Stay healthy. Just as another YouTuber says, be kind to each other. I'm gonna get some rest. I'm gonna make sure all the pictures match up to my recordings, and then I'm gonna get some rest. I don't know, vice versa. I don't know which. Anyways, like and subscribe, please. Thank you to those that have been like to subscribe for a while. Comment, you guys, please. Any cases that you have any ideas for. I really like these important cases that have a message, especially about race or about LGBTQ plus community and stuff. Anyways, have a good night, you guys.